welcome to my life. We're very honored to have Mr. Randy Stetson with us today on our program. If you don't know Randy already, he's the Senior Vice Commander of VFW Post 334 here in Oxford. Actually, it's considered the
North Oakland
branch of the VFW.
Right.
And besides being the winner of 2 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star, among other things, from his service in Vietnam, Randy obviously is very active in our local VFW. So I think maybe, Randy, we'll just start by talking about some of the things that are going on with the VFW right now that you would like to get out there and let people know about. Some of the new programs that are coming up.
Well, I appreciate you asking. Well, the programs that are coming up, our big thing is right now is the Poppy Drive. That's coming up the 1st of May to the 18th. And we're looking to more or less have people out there to buy a poppy. So, and that helps to support numerous organizations, and especially our biggest one is the orphanage in Cedar Rapids.
I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of that. Tell us more about that.
Well, Cedar Rapids is usually, it's from children that were left behind by their mothers or fathers. They were killed in action, and the VFW has taken it upon themselves, as far as the national and everything, including our chapter, of course, to support these children so they get them an education and get them what they need. And it also supports the wife of a soldier or whatever, if he was killed or she was killed. It helps them along the way too. So
does that go back a long ways, that orphanage?
It goes back quite a ways. I think I'm not exactly sure when it started, but I would imagine it goes back, I'm not sure, World War II or maybe Korea, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it goes back quite a ways. So.
But thank goodness it's been around for a while to help these folks out.
It's a complete village, so it's a village. It's just like they have their own fire department and everything else.
Right. And not only that, I believe you folks go into the schools. I think you mentioned something about going over to Oxford High School sometime soon.
Yes, we will. We will be doing Oxford High School. They have asked us to come in. They're studying Vietnam. So I'm going to have several veterans there on April the 2nd. So I don't know exactly how they're going to have the setup, but I've been told it might be in the auditorium or whatever. But yeah, that's one of our main things. We go all over the place. We also have students coming in from Lake Orion coming in May the 12th. And they come in by the bus loads to see our museum there at the post.
At the post here?
Yes, we have a beautiful museum there. So, and Jim Parker is the curator of it. So we'll have all the veterans from all the wars be there to more or less answer the questions of these young men and women.
We were talking before we went on the air about casualties of war and how it's hard to impress on our young people how quickly these numbers ramped up during Vietnam, and how way back in those days when we watched Walter Cronkite do the evening news, it was just unbelievable how many of our friends and relatives passed away in that war. And now of course we have soldiers in the Middle East and so forth, and it's bad enough that we've lost a few thousand over there, but my goodness, the numbers were just staggering.
Over 58,000 in Vietnam, so
58,000
men that were, and some women that were killed in Vietnam. So.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about your service during Vietnam, but I'd like to start by going back a little further than that. Let's talk about Randy Stetson and where he came from. Where were you born, Randy?
I was born in Petoskey, Michigan, and we went to, my dad had a farm. I was on a farm for a while in Goodhart, Michigan. We had close to 500 acres at one time, and we ran maple syrup and of course chickens and cows and you name it. So we did whatever we had to do to make a living.
So you probably got up pretty early in the morning most days.
Well, I was just a baby then, so it wasn't too bad. All I had to do was sit back and watch.
Did he get out of farming before you got old enough to help out, or what?
Yes, he did. He got out of farming. He found that he kept the farm for quite a while, and he moved to down to the south here to Detroit area and Dearborn, and finally settled in Hazel Park. And I more or less grew up in Hazel Park.
Did he end up down there in a quest for employment?
Yes,
Or?
he was in the banking industry.
Oh,
And he earlier before I was born, he helped build bombers for the Willow Run, I believe it was.
is that, yeah, the Will Run plant?
He was an electrician on the Bombay doors or whatever. So
I see. Now, what about your grandparents? Did you know your grandparents?
I knew I have Scottish my grandparents, and on my mother's side, and my dad's side is English, basically.
Did you know them yourself personally?
Yes, I knew them. Yeah,
Did you?
I knew most of them except for my great-great-grandfather, which I had was killed in the Second Battle of Bull Run in the Civil War. So
Your family has a lot of military history,
yes,
doesn't
they
it?
do. Yeah, they go back quite a ways. so.
Okay. In fact, I was amazed you brought some materials in for us to photograph that you may be looking at now, as a matter of fact. And somebody in your family went back an awfully long ways. I mean, did you say
Well, we went back to, my wife traced it back to Constantine the Great.
Constantine?
And we also had two Scottish kings that were in the family. So,
Wow, royalty.
So I have royalty, yes.
How about that? Now, where did you go to school yourself? Where did you go to elementary school?
I went in Hazel Park. I went through the schools there. I advanced to Detroit Manufacturing, did some work there as training and whatever, and I wound up as a carpenter. So
This was after high school.
this is after high school.
After high school.
Of course, after high school, I was drafted, so I had to go into the service too.
Just like a lot of other
Yeah, I
people.
had to give all that up and
yeah.
move forward. So
What was going through your mind in high school with the draft and all the stuff that was going on?
well, I was hoping I'd be one of the lucky ones they wouldn't pick. So, or I'd wind up in going to Germany or something like that. But it didn't work out that way.
Well, you
so-
know, they had the lottery system back then. And of course, Hazel Park was a larger community. I mean, I came from the little town of Monroe, and I was number
yeah.
304 or something like that.
General Custer.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, I thought, you know, you can't trust the system here. You got to fend for yourself. So I ended up enlisting. But anyway, but I know what you're saying. You just you didn't know what to expect. But obviously, you did get drafted.
Yes. I wound up in the Army as in the 11th Air Cab. I wound up in a Special Operations Unit, which was, you've heard of General Patton in
Yes.
World War II, Old Blood and Guts. Well, his son was my commander in Vietnam, Colonel Patton at that time. So, and we were quite known in that area. I had an area operation, War Zone D, which was quite just the northwest of Saigon at that time.
Now, at what point in all this did you meet your wife?
I met her when I came home from the service.
Okay, so afterwards.
Right, I met her where I where I wound up working, which was Hazel Park Schools.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I did. I come from a family of 9. I had 3 brothers, and the 3 brothers are dead now, and the rest were sisters, 6 sisters.
Okay. We're going to take a little break, but we're going to continue this conversation in just a moment. Here with Randy Stetson, the Senior Vice Commander of the Oxford VFW. We're talking about your siblings and getting drafted into the Army. Were your siblings involved with the military at all back then? Did they get drafted or anything?
Just my older brother he was in the Navy. He was during I believe the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban crisis.
Right.
He was involved with that.
So he must have been a little older than you.
Yes, he was. He was older, much older than I am. So.
I see.
And of course, go back to the Civil War. So.
Wow. What was going through your mind when you got drafted?
Well, it's just, it's taking you away from your comfort zone, basically, and it's more or less putting you to a spot where you got to more or less be on your own and learn to adapt. And you don't have your mom and dad to run to anymore. You've got to do your own thing, basically.
Where did they take you for basic training?
I went to basic training to Fort Knox, Kentucky for the basic. So, and then after that, the AIT, Advanced Tactical Training, was Fort Polk, Louisiana, which was the worst spot you could go for. They called it Little Vietnam, and that was the worst spot you could go, but the best training, because they trained you like for the jungle type of training.
Was it because the terrain there was very much like the real thing?
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how long were you in training down there at Fort
I was
Polk?
in AIT for, well, I think they had us in there about 8 weeks, somewhere around there. So, and then after that, we got into Vietnam. We were more or less involved with a little more training there once I was in Vietnam by the, I believe it was the 5th Special Forces group at that time.
So you had more training right there.
Right there.
In
They
country.
take you out of combat and take you into a training situation,
Mhm.
and then you go back into combat again. So,
Oh, I see.
if they took you out and you went into combat and you survived your mission and came back alive, then you were accepted. So
You had to survive, though. That was
All
the
right,
key.
You had to survive. So.
What was your first impression of Vietnam?
Well, my first impression, it was really hot and humid. And people were pretty much poor, but they had beautiful, being more or less coming from a farm background in a way. You look at the soil from flying on the helicopters and that, it'd be very black, fertile, just beautiful soil and everything. And the people basically, they worked those lands for rice paddies or whatever.
So what was your main job in the military over there then?
I was an air assault team. We call them Black Berets. More or less, they called us. At that time, we were called death merchants because of our black beret and everything. Our job was to seek out the enemy and destroy them. And our motto was, you're probably going to cut this out, but our motto was find the bastards and pile on. Mm-hmm. That was our job.
Was your job mainly on the ground, or did you parachute in, or?
No, we didn't parachute in. We were an air assault. We were flown in into an area and then and dropped with the helicopters, and then we'd work our way in, and we would scout that area and try to find if we could make contact and find out what kind of positions they had and how many men they had and stuff like that. And sometimes we were supposed to go in there and not make a sound and try to get out, but most of the time we wound up in a firefight. And then they'd pull us out sometimes if we made it out, and they'd bring in a bigger unit, a bigger tank unit or something like that. So
how many folks were there in your unit?
we had four squads, basically.
So there were 4 squads of you folks who went into the jungle seeking out the other guys.
That's what we did. That was our job, was to find the enemy. So
Okay. At what point did you get your first commendation?
my first commendation was a Purple Heart, but basically I wasn't issued that one because I've asked for it, but it was basically friendly fire. It was from one of our helicopters got too close and they shot rockets in, and I was wounded by a shrapnel from that. And then I have 2 other ones, my 2 Purple Hearts. One was from a firefight, from a bayonet going through my right shoulder. And the third one was what they call the $1 million wound. That's when I went down.
Does that mean you got $1 million?
Well, they call it that way in the lifelong thing.
Is that right?
They're taking you out of the service and you're it. That's done.
Yeah. How long had you been in Vietnam when that occurred?
I wasn't in Vietnam a real long time, probably about 8 months.
Okay.
I didn't finish out my tour, so,
All right.
because of the combat. But my lieutenant always told me, Stetson, get down, get down. I was always trying to look up, trying to see, what the situation was.
Okay. And how did you sustain that wound again?
This one here,
The final one.
the final one was through I was hit the back. I was loading casualties. The men that I pulled out of a bunker, I
Right.
destroyed a bunker. Actually, I destroyed 2 bunkers myself. And I had 3 men that were wounded, and I pulled them out and trying to get the worst that was in bad shape, trying to get him out to a medevac, but they weren't able to get a medevac in there, so they brought in what they call a loach, a small scout ship. And he was hovering, and we were loading him, and all of a sudden they opened up with AK. They had a 50 caliber in there. They opened up with AK, and then they finally hit the helicopter with an RPG, which was a rocket launcher, and that put it out of commission. And then that's when I got to more or less my main wound.
And how did that happen again? What was the nature of the wound? I mean,
This was from
what
an
caused
AK.
it? From
From an AK from the back. When I was loading the casualties
Gotcha.
on, that was it. And then the helicopter wound up in the bomb crater with us. That's where I took the wounded, was to a bomb
Yeah.
crater.
How old were you at the time?
I was only about 20 years old at that
20?
time. I turned 21 in Vietnam.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What went through your mind when that happened? A 20-year-old kid
Well,
with a life-threatening wound like that.
I thought for sure I'm going to die. I'm going to be killed. When the chopper went down, I had my sergeant with me, and it went down and exploded, and he got flash blinded. He couldn't see. And he's howling around. He knew I was around. And Stetson, I said, I'm hit. I can't do nothing. I'm laying on my face. So I asked him. He kind of fumbled around and got me and rolled me back over onto my upward, more or less where I could see. And he didn't have a weapon. My weapon's to the left of me. When he rolled me over, I said, you grab my weapon and I'll be the eyes. If you see the enemy coming, I'll tell you when. We're going to go out basically in a blaze of glory. But I really thought I was going to die. I was already prepared for death. But I made it. I just couldn't believe that I made it. So,
Thank goodness for that. I want to talk to you more about that and what happened afterwards, but we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, I'm Terry Stiles.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill Service, and I'm the producer of Our Community Access. Terry and I started our show 8 years ago to bring our community into your living rooms.
Our Community Access is a show born from the rich diversity of our community, and we want to brag about it and the people creating that diversity.
Over the years, we've been from fox hunts to beekeeping and right in your own backyard.
We welcome new businesses, chamber fashion, senior hobbies, class reunions, and much, much more.
We've covered all our celebrations from Leonard Strawberry Festival to our premier Lone Ranger Parade.
But there's still more avenues that we plan on going on.
So watch our Community Access at 9:30 and 5:30 every day, and you have a great, great week.
We're back with Randy Stetson, who's telling us about his experiences in Vietnam and how he won a couple of Purple Hearts and a Silver Star, and we're honored to have him on our program. Thanks for being here, Randy.
thank you.
Okay, you were telling us about how you sustained the final wound that you got and what was going through your mind. You were a 20-year-old kid. You and a partner were just trying to stay alive and get out of the situation that you were in. Why don't you keep going with the story?
Okay, I was trying to more or less stay alive. The best thing that happened at that particular time is that I was an RTO, which was the radio operator, and I had called ahead of time for a bigger tank unit in the area to give me an ETA as to where they were, if they could come in and help us. And it was the 1st Infantry, which was in there, and Big Red 1, basically. And it seemed like forever, but finally, when I was ready for death, Big Red 1 appeared.
Really?
And they brought in what they call an ACAB, which is APC, whatever, and they brought that in, and they hit the bunkers with the 50 and 30 caliber weapons. And then they were going to load me into the back of it and take us out. it got hit with an RPG and exploded. So if I would have been in there, I would have been dead along with everyone else. So that was disabled, that machine, except for the gunner who was still up there laying a base of fire down. So finally the big guys came in, the big tanks, and pretty much that put an end to it. They were able to destroy the rest of the bunkers in the area.
You hear a lot of folks say, who've been involved in combat, that when you're actually going through it, it's not so much about your country or politics or that, it's about helping your buddies save their lives and saving your own life.
That's what it's about.
Did you find that to
yes,
be true?
Yes, you become very close to your buddies and friends. Your life is on the line. Their life is on the line for you, and you're on the line for them. So you count on each other, and you care about each other.
Tell me what happened then after you were extracted from that situation. What was the next? Where was the next place you ended up?
Well, the next place I went, I was bleeding. I almost bled to death, and I didn't think I was going to make it, and I kept going in and out, in and out. And then finally I seen this big red cross on a LZ, a landing pad. In the medevac, I seen that. When I seen that big red cross, that gave me that extra willpower to hang in there. And once I got there, I was taken to the 90-30 VAC hospital, and they just came
Where was
out.
that?
That was, I believe, around I'm not sure.
Was it in Vietnam?
It was in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
a field hospital, yes. And they stripped me down and had IVs in me and everything, and I made it. So, but the doctor said, they asked me a bunch of questions and everything. He said, I'm going to have to take your arm off, son. I said, well, I figured that. I said, I already knew it came from when they placed on my body when I was in the bomb crater. I could feel it go from warm to cold, and I knew I lost my arm anyway. So I said, you got to do what you got to do. If that's going to save my life, then so be.
And that kind of started another war for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it started another war. I came back to the States. It took a while to get back because I had malaria too, on top of everything else. But when I got back to the States, the people were just terrible. I mean, it's like going into another combat, and I couldn't believe it. It hurt. It hurt to see that my own people were against me. Not just me, but all of us, the Vietnam vets. So it's like a lot of guys say, they spit at you or whatever, call you baby killers or whatever, and it was just, it's just like fighting another war.
Absolutely.
So I just laid back and stayed out of circulation as much as possible.
Tell me more about how things went from there, how your recovery went, and where things took place.
Well, I was eventually flown around in Fort Dix, New Jersey. First I was in Clark Air Force Base, which is no longer there. And then I went from the Clark Air Force Base to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then from Fort Dix, New Jersey to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, where I had most of my recovery and as far as trying to deal with the arm and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that went pretty well, but I wanted to go home. I didn't want to stay there. But
What kind of things were going through your mind about what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
that's just it. I'm not the type of person. I didn't want to sit around and say, well, you don't have to work anymore. You got 100%. You got the $1 million wound. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. I want to work.
Sure.
But it was very hard to find a job. I was ready to do anything just to work because I had a family at that time. I was starting up, and I wanted to give them the best that I could do.
At what point in all this did you meet your wife and finally get married?
I met my wife in Hazel Park when I got a job with Hazel Park Schools, and I met her in 1974, I believe it was.
Okay, so this was after you'd been through the hospitalization.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You were released, and you did find employment.
Yes, I did. It was hard, but it was fortunately I was involved with the Boy Scouts before I went over there, and I knew the superintendent of the schools because he was the scoutmaster.
Right.
But his personnel director or whatever wasn't going to hire me, along with a lot of other companies they wouldn't hire me. They more or less would just turn and run, say, well, they're not available. But he, for some good reason, or the good Lord sent him, that he showed up, and he said, Randy, what happened to you? Oh, Dr. Webb, I was in Vietnam. He said, tell me no more. He said, are you here for employment? I said, yes, I am. I'm trying to get a job here. Oh, he said, well, good luck. And he disappeared, and all of a sudden, this personnel director shows up. They put me to work the next day.
So what did they have you doing?
I started out as a custodial,
Uh-huh.
and then I worked my way up to the master maintenance, and I was a master carpenter because I had training in
Right.
carpentry and stuff of that nature.
So how'd you meet your wife?
I met her. She was a teacher at one of the schools.
A teacher?
She was a teacher, and I happened to be working on a project over there, and I met her. A friend of mine introduced me to her, and that was it. So it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be alive, let's put it that way.
Okay. God bless her and God bless you. Now, how many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids,
Four
4 children. I have 3 boys and 1 daughter.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I'm really proud to say that I have 1 grandson, and he's such a good boy. So,
Have any of your kids been in the military?
no, they haven't. Thank God. I don't think they know what happened to me, and I think they kind of want to avoid that. So,
But what happened to you is sad because you sustained a disability, but it's important because you fought for your country and did some honorable things in the eyes of our country. You won these medals and so on and so forth.
I wanted to do the best that I could do. You know, I wanted to be a good soldier. I went where my country asked me to go, without question. I served honorably, and I did the best that I could do, and that was it. So.
Now, tell me more about, okay, how long did you work for the school system?
I worked for the school system for close to over 27 years. I worked for the schools, and plus I bought military time, which included another year or so.
Okay, so did you stay in the maintenance position with the schools?
I stayed with the
or-
maintenance. I wound up as the #1 master carpenter there, and I almost wound up as the overseer, the supervisor.
Uh-huh.
But
That was at Hazel Park?
At Hazel Park, right.
Okay. So at what point did you move out this way?
I was kind of looking around, and I always wanted to be in the country, and found this place, my wife did, and we drove out, and I said, if it's 1 more mile further, it's too far to go to work. And within that mile, we found the place, and that was it. So we
Good for
wound
you.
up in Oakland Township and found that place, and we fell in love with it, and were able to get it.
And it sounds like you've been very involved in trying to give back to the veterans of today.
Very caring. We have one of the good things about the VFW and the Legion is that we have a very good group of men, and they're very caring, and they care about our fellow man and women, and especially the soldiers that are in combat right now. So,
Well, Randy, we're honored to have you on the show, and we're honored to have you in our community. Thanks for your service and all you've done.
well, thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Take off your hat, throw it in the corner. Take off your hat, throw it in the corner. Take off your hat.